part of what was going on for me at that time was um, I was really addicted to the connection, and maybe some of your listeners can relate to this. It's like we meet someone, whoever it is, it could be a friend, it could be a partner, a man, woman, whatever it is, and it's like, oh my gosh, I feel this connection, and I'm just like so pulled to it. And it's like, well, I have to make this work. I can't lose this connection. If I lose this connection, there's not going to be another connection. Then I'm just going to be alone forever. Right? Or these are the types of stories we start to tell ourselves. So then we start to be willing to self-sacrifice ourselves. And when you're self-sacrificing, you are 100% giving your power away. So, and that's what I was doing. And what I've learned over time is that connection is beautiful and it's very important in a relationship, but so is alignment. So is core values. But in order to know what alignment is, in order to know what core values are, you have to know yourself in order to know what it is that you want, right? And then from there, every relationship requires compromise. There's no way around that. But there's a difference between compromise and self-sacrifice. And again, nobody should have to self-sacrifice in any kind of relationship. If you are, again, you're giving your power away. But the idea here is the more you know yourself, the more you make yourself a priority, the more you connect to who you truly are, you know the line.
Back to the Power and Purpose podcast. I'm Vanessa Soul, your host. Thank you so much for investing your time and your energy into tuning in to today's episode. I'm super excited for today's guests. We have Randi Halaway. She is a self-leadership and personal power expert, coach, and speaker. Randi, thank you so much for being here on the show today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. So I have a signature question that I love to ask. Who are you and who are you not?
The thing that comes to mind first is just a soul having a human experience is who I am, doing my best to grow on this life's journey. And um, who I'm not is, I would say, the fear, the chaotic patterns, the parts of us that want to go into all of that to make this experience more complicated, if that makes any sense.
Perfect sense. I love that. I mean, I ask every guest this. I ask my friends this when they're not on the show, and I get a million different answers, but that one is good. I don't know if I've heard that recently or at all. I am not the fear that keeps me stuck. That is powerful. So I love to just chat a little bit in the beginning about where were you before, you came into this embodiment expression of who you are today. You were a salon owner, and what was that like? One, are you still a salon owner, or was that kind of like who you were before and then you went into this transition into who you are today?
Yeah, so I've been in the coaching and personal development space my entire life. My dad's a coach, speaker, author. So I was always sort of in that. I think that was a part of my destiny. But I was actually a hairstylist for 17 years, and then I owned my salon for 5.5, and I actually sold it in 2017. Which was a big decision because I had been really invested in that world. And at some point, I started asking myself, while I had been coaching all of my clients and creating coaching programs for all my employees, I was like, what am I the most passionate about? And I realized that while I loved the business side of things and the growing, the expansion, I really was the most passionate about helping women really remember who they are, start to make themselves a priority, start to love themselves, start to connect more to their personal power, to their heart, and create their life, business relationships from that place. So I sold my salon in 2017 and started the journey of coaching, supporting women to step into that power. So.
Yeah. And then what was your lifestyle like during the salon business ownership? Were you in a good flow? Were you burnt out? Was it a mix, something different?
Yeah, it was definitely a mix. So, a lot of growth during that time. I lived downtown in San Diego. That's where my salon was. So I could walk to work. It was a really amazing time. But was like out a lot, kind of like doing a lot of events and doing all types of things. And um, I definitely was still going deeper with this idea of like the attachment of who I was. So at one point I realized as I would go out and I'd be meeting people and doing all this socialite things, I was really connected to like, hi, my name is Randi, I'm a salon owner. And at some point I realized I was like very, very hooked into that. So it took me some time to kind of start pulling on me like, I'm actually not my career. I'm not my salon. I'm not my business. I'm not whatever it is that I'm creating. And that started a journey for me to go deeper with my own personal development, But yeah, absolutely. There were times that I was really burned out, working too hard, giving too much, not having boundaries. Um, but that was what ultimately helped me to start to see those patterns so I could pull out of them and start to have more boundaries, start to come back more to myself, start to like again ask like what really matters here? What do I want to be focused on? And so as I went through that, I just became more and more clear on who I was and what I wanted to create there.
And then you mentioned something before around a second marriage that was ending. Was that during that time and what was happening and how was that part of like your transition?
Yeah, that was probably one of the most transformational times of my life. So, just to give a little context, September of 2017, I got engaged for the second time. November of 2017, I sold my salon. March of 2018, I got married. And then by August of 18, I was starting the divorce process. So, within a year, all of that had happened. It was a 4-month marriage. And yeah, it was like by far the most challenging thing that I've ever gone through, especially since, I'm 37 at the time. I'm literally on the kitchen floor, kind of going, how in the hell did I get here? I'm 37, I'm divorced twice. I've been doing this work for years. I understood all of these teachings and personal development work so well. And what I realized is I understood it intellectually, but I hadn't been integrating. I was still running from my fear. I was still running from my feelings. I was still very afraid of being abandoned or being left or being alone. I still hadn't fully started to love myself in the way that I think we need to in order to choose the things that are a higher level for us. I always say now we say yes to things based on the way we feel about ourselves. And while I was, on my journey at that point, I wasn't in a place where I fully loved myself because what I was saying yes to wasn't very honoring. But ultimately, it ended up cracking open my heart. I had this crossroads at that point where I was like, wow, I have a lot of content to be a victim here. I could really go down that path. And then I realized, but like, that's not the point. And so I flipped it and I started going down this victor path and started, taking him, my ex, taking the experience and moving it to the side. And I started looking at myself in the mirror and started asking, well, why did you say yes to this? Why did you walk down the aisle? Why did you stay? What was going on with inside of you? And that's when everything started to change. I started healing through that process. I actually created a process that helped me really work through what was under the surface of all of that. And now that's actually something that I teach my clients. I really help women learn how to look at the trauma, look at the challenging experience, look at the ego-based story, the meaning, the limitations, the chaotic patterns, the victim mentality, and pull out of it. But also, because that's mindset work, which is really important, but next level, go down and actually look at the fear, actually look at what it is you've been running from, the feeling, and learn how to process it and understand that it's not trying to hurt you. It doesn't have any meaning and it actually just wants to be felt by you. And the more I started doing that, what happened is I noticed I started naturally falling into what I was feeling this more calm, inner peace, flow state, more connected to my heart, my truth, my intuition, my personal power. And from there, I was like, whoa, okay, well, I have access to infinite possibilities. And so that's what really started to transform my life. And now I feel just really grateful that I get to help other women do that as well.
Mm, so beautiful. Personal power. It's such a loaded topic. And I love that this is what you do, right? Like you have really created a niche for yourself here. Um, were you in your power in that second marriage? I'm sure you weren't completely powerless, but like what like looking back now, you whatever was happening, you may not have had the awareness during that time, but like looking back, were you halfway in? Were you wanting it, not really there, or were you in it and I don't know, there was another dynamic happening?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think there was a dabbling of sorts, if you will. Like I always say, like I was as far along as I had ever been. I had been working on myself and I had made progress. But the reality is I was still giving my power away to the fear. Part of what was going on for me at that time was um, I was really addicted to the connection, and maybe some of your listeners can relate to this. It's like we meet someone, whoever it is, it could be a friend, it could be a partner, a man, woman, whatever it is, and it's like, oh my gosh, I feel this connection, and I'm just like so pulled to it, and it's like, well, I have to make this work. I can't lose this connection. If I lose this connection, there's not going to be another connection. Then I'm just going to be alone forever. Right? Or these are the types of stories we start to tell ourselves. So then we start to be willing to self-sacrifice ourselves. And when you're self-sacrificing, you are 100% giving your power away. So, and that's what I was doing. And what I've learned over time is that connection is beautiful and it's very important in a relationship, but so is alignment. So is core values. But in order to know what alignment is, in order to know what core values are, you have to know yourself in order to know what it is that you want, right? And then from there, every relationship requires compromise. There's no way around that. But there's a difference between compromise and self-sacrifice. And again, nobody should have to self-sacrifice in any kind of relationship. If you are, again, you're giving your power away. But the idea here is the more you know yourself, the more you make yourself a priority, the more you connect to who you truly are, you know the line. And so me today, going back to me then, would be able to see the line like, come on, girl, you are giving your power away. You are sacrificing. You're bending over backwards here, trying to make this work. You're not looking at flags. You're not looking at signs that are so huge. And you know what? I also don't regret it. I feel like that relationship cracked me open in a way and opened me up in a way that I don't know if it would have been possible otherwise. And it made me who I am today. And I really like who I am today. I'm not going to go down that path again. I've actually learned
Yeah.
that lesson, so to be clear about that. But I
Yeah.
look back at it, and while it's still something that I have to navigate 8 years later, because it was hard. But I also am like, wow, look what it did. Look how it woke me up. The thing is, if we don't see what's there to be healed, we don't have a chance to heal it. And so it's the awareness that gives us the power. And that's what I'm really grateful for.
Beautiful. I have so many questions. Let me put these in order.
Yeah.
First one, what is an example? I love what you said that there's a difference between compromise and self-sacrifice. Just to paint the picture for people, what is one example? You don't have to use yourself, but you could if you want. What is one example of that difference between self-sacrifice and compromise?
Yeah, so a compromise in any kind of relationship is kind of just, the simplest one would be like, well, I really like sushi and you really like Italian. Okay, well, tonight we'll go to sushi, tomorrow we'll go to Italian. It's very simple. You can put that into most things, right? I really like Bali. You really like Tulum. Okay, cool. We'll go to Bali this summer and we'll go to Tulum next summer, right? I really like pink in the room and you really like blue in the room. Okay, like we'll mix it in. We'll see what else is possible. Or we'll come up with a color that's completely different that we can both agree on. Okay. So that's a simple example of a compromise. A self-sacrifice is I'm allergic to sushi, but I'm gonna go do it anyway. I get literally eaten alive. My whole body is covered in hives when I go to Tulum, but I'm gonna go anyway. Right. So that's a little bit more of an extreme example, but the idea here is like someone's presenting something, and maybe I could go an example of like, I really value high level communication with someone. I like it when they check in with me every day and ask how I am. And they
Mhm.
tell me how they feel and we talk through a conflict. But yet I find myself in a relationship with someone who never asks me how I am. A conflict happens and they walk away, but I'm still staying. That is a self-sacrifice.
Very good examples because it's so important to really understand this. And yes, she's using like sushi and Italian or I don't know whatever you said, but this allows us to understand the foundation, like the framework of compromise, the framework of self-sacrifice. So that way when it starts to happen, and I get it, you guys, like sometimes self-sacrifice happens a little bit more in complex ways. Sometimes it's not so obvious. But again, if you give yourself space and then layer some boundaries on top of it, Randy, you mentioned boundaries at least with your your salon business in the beginning. But how important are boundaries even in a relationship, even when we are doing the compromise thing? Do we still also need to be mindful of boundaries?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. They're very important. And I also will go back to like the piece with self-sacrifice and the piece with boundaries because I think they're kind of correlated. But again, you're not going to know what your boundary is and what a self-sacrifice is if you don't know yourself. And so this is why it's so important. If you want to know the hack to truly, truly living the life of your dreams, it's actually slowing down and going inside. Now I know the mind is like, Randy, you don't understand. I have a to-do list. I have all these things to do. I got to get going. I got to get manifesting. I got things. And I hear you. I do, because I do too. But what I have learned is if you slow down, everything that's going on inside is a reflection of outside and vice versa. So the hack is if you slow down and go here first, you learn how to make yourself a priority. You learn how to regulate your nervous system. You learn how to connect to what really matters to you, what your values are, to trust yourself. That is step one. You do that, connect to your intuition, you're going to know the answers to all of the things we're talking about. You're going to know, like, now my body tells me immediately when I'm skating the line of self-sacrifice. I just know, I can feel it. And then I'm like, oh, I skated the line, which we're human. So that's going to happen, right? And then I just pull back. And then that's when I create the boundary. Actually, this doesn't work for me. And here's why, and here's what will work. And then you state it, but then remember, a lot of people get confused with boundaries. They think, well, I told you my boundary. Now it's up to you, Vanessa, to respect my boundary. And the reality is it's not, because you have your life going on. You have things you're going on. And while you might love me and you might want to respect it, you might not be aware. So it's up to me to say, Vanessa, we talked about this. Like we said that whenever we go out on Wednesday nights, like you're not going to wear pink, you're going to wear another color, but now you're doing it anyway. So again, I'm coming up with a very like sort of silly example, but we talked about it. So now that you're doing that, I'm going to actually leave now. That's me fulfilling the boundary. Now, again, that's an extreme, silly example, but it's like coming up with the things that like work for you, and then you have to fulfill it. Another one could be like, hey, we made an agreement. A boundary is no yelling. A boundary is no name calling. And then now you start doing it to me again. And I'm like, well, wait, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you listening to me? Why aren't you listening to my boundary? It's like, because you're a human and you have your own stuff. It's not up to that person. It's up to you to say, oh, you're yelling. Okay, I'm going to leave now. Oh, you're name calling. Okay, I'm going to leave now because that's my boundary. And if I stay, I'm self-sacrificing.
Yes, yes. Recently, a friend of mine who didn't quite understand the purpose of boundaries, I'll tell you how I explained it to them, and then I would love to hear your thoughts too. They were like, well, this is someone who didn't grow up with them. I didn't either. So no judgment for anyone else who's listening. They're like, well, Vanessa, I don't know what boundaries are either. Or even if you understand what they are, but you don't know like the deeper benefit, right, of a boundary or the purpose of it. Cause that's what someone literally asked me. They were like, well, I get what you're doing, right? You're kind of like stopping me from doing this, or you're not stopping, but you're kind of like, you know, a, I don't know what other word to replace that with besides boundary, putting up a boundary, a line. Yeah, exactly. So I said, well, the purpose of this is for me to self-preserve. That's how I described it to that person. How else do you describe it? Like the deeper purpose, the deeper benefit of these boundaries?
Yeah, it's protection of your energy. It's you making yourself a priority, you treating yourself as you are truly the most important person in your life, that you matter the most, you love you the most. If you don't take care of you, who's doing it? Prince Charming isn't coming through the door. And even if he does, it's not his job to save us.
Right.
It's or her job. It's not their job. This is a misunderstanding through fairy tales, through society, through all of it. That is giving your power away. To be empowered, and then to be clear, to be empowered is not, I don't need a man, I don't need help, I don't need friends, I don't need community. That's not what that is. That can also be giving your power away. But it's knowing that, like, this isn't about someone saving me. This is about me saving me. This is about me actually loving myself and doing the thing that's honoring for me. And here's the deal. When you start to do that, while it might be uncomfortable, while it might be scary, because it's like, but I've had this friend or this partner for however many years, and what will I do without them? You will be free. You will be free. And what happens is when you start to treat yourself that way, is you open up space. Remember, there's energetics and frequency going on here. We only have so much space. If I'm holding on to all of the relationships that I have, or experiences or dynamics or whatever it is that aren't honoring to me for the fear that there won't be something else, then nothing else gets to come in. There's no space. But when I'm willing to be courageous enough to let go of what's no longer serving, to choose me, to know that I'm already whole and safe and worthy and loved within anyway. what happens is all of this space gets created. And that's when your next level of reflection comes in. Meaning, if I'm standing here saying, and it's with love, this isn't about being mean to anyone, just like, hey, I hear you, but this doesn't work for me. So I wish you the best, or whatever that is. But now I've owned me, and then there's now space for something new to come in that reflects that. Imagine attracting someone, friend, client, partner, whatever that is, that's a reflection of you loving yourself so much and making yourself a priority. Imagine that reflection. Because again, it is a reflection. This is universal law. This isn't something that like I made up. That's where the transformation happens.
I love the way that you're explaining all of this. Earlier, you said something to the effect of, I gave my power away to the fear. What fear was that in particular, or was it just in general? Because I think that this is common.
Yeah, it's huge. Um, so for me, if I go back to my second marriage, the fear was abandonment. I was abandoned by my parents when I was little. So I actually attracted the same person to abandon me twice within 3 years. Literally the same thing happened. It's just the first time we were dating for 3 months, the second time we were married for 4. It was like the same thing. Um, I was afraid of being abandoned, which is exactly what I attracted. Because remember, what you focus on expands. So if you've got a fear and you're like, I'm afraid of being abandoned, I'm afraid of being abandoned, I'm afraid, it's like, abandon me, abandon me, abandon me, abandon me, right? So that was
That's the law of attraction, you guys.
was underneath the surface. And like again, like I said, when this all happened, I was like literally on the kitchen floor, like rolling around. Like it was bad. Like my best friend had to come get me. This was like the hardest thing that's ever happened to me. And I had a pretty intense childhood. But I had the content to be like, well, this happened to me, until I realized, like, no, 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 this happened for me. And that's your choice. That's your crossroads. At any time, you can pull out of that victim and become a victor. And I promise you that path is filled with so much more joy and freedom. Right. So it's the idea of coming back to that place of like, okay, what have I been focused on? If I'm focusing more on my fear of I'm abandoned, I'm rejected, I'm not good enough, whatever, you attract more of that. So that was one of the main fears. But when I really broke it down, and I continued to break it down, I continued to break it down as I did my healing around this, it was being alone. It was being alone, which is so it's fascinating how humans, how we can, have this in different ways. And it was almost like I would rather be in this super intense, dishonoring, dysfunctional situation than to be alone and to feel the feeling of alone, which is interesting because I felt alone in the relationship anyway. So what I learned is that another human doesn't necessarily determine your feeling of alone. The feeling of alone is a human emotion that you're going to have no matter what. You can be with the most amazing partner, have the most amazing friends and family and community and all those things. This is a you and you conversation. And when you heal this from within, you no longer have to make your decisions from the fear of alone, abandoned, rejected, not good enough, judged, etc. I don't want to feel uncomfortable. It's like, well, what if you learned how to feel uncomfortable? What if you became a master at navigating your emotions? You wouldn't have to be afraid of anything ever again. And that's real freedom. Not because you have someone locked in, you married them, and they're never going to leave you. I can tell you right now, I've been married twice. The second marriage, everything was signed, sealed, and delivered. And it literally ended like that. There was no real security in a piece of paper. Right. And so that's what really opened things up for me. So that's what it came down to. That was the fear.
Yeah. And it's so good to highlight this for self-awareness, you guys. So you might also want to really understand your fear. And Randy named off a couple others that I think are really common because I've seen it with my clients. I think you said not good enough. Fear of rejection, huge. People don't want to feel rejected or abandoned, like in your case a couple years ago. So yeah, really understanding that. You also honed in on something getting to know yourself, your authentic self. Briefly, what does it mean and how can we like really activate that on a daily basis?
The authentic self is coming back to the simplest place within, that you're already loved, you're already safe, you're already whole, you're already worthy, you're already powerful within. There's nothing else you need to do. Like the jig is up. You do not need to do the laundry list that you have in order to be accepted, in order to be enough, in order to be safe. You can throw it out. It's already here. That's your authentic self. Your mind is what convinces you to outward, outward, outward validation, validation, validation. And you ever notice how it's never enough? For those of you who've been around the sun a few times, you've accomplished, but then you're like, oh, the next. You don't even get a second to celebrate. Maybe you do one cheers with someone, and then you're like, oh, on to the next. You better get going. You better hustle. You better grind. You better get out there, right? And it's like, what if you were already enough within right now? Right? So that's your true authentic self. And that's where I'm telling you, so much magic is on the other side of that. Because again, you're not spending so much time outward, you're spending more time inward, which means now instead of trying, you're like magnetic, magnetic, magnetic. Things just start to come to you because you have space and you have receptivity and you know you're already whole. So that's a reflection. So, how you do that is you have to learn how to go within. You have to learn how to sit in your system. You have to learn how to regulate your nervous system. Most people's nervous system is completely addicted to chaos, fear, lack, hard, hard, hard. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? People ask me that all the time, and I'm like, yes, I can believe it. Absolutely. Because here's your choices. Here's what you're doing. Here's what your system is doing. So, the idea, if you want to really connect to your most authentic self, you have to learn how to regulate your system. You have to learn how to be in your body. You have to learn how to be present, right? And how you do that is by deciding you want to do it, making a commitment, and then practicing consistently. So, a big part of what I teach is helping people slow down, get into their body, have a ritual, what I call a self-care ritual every single morning that's consistent. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be super long. Now, for me, I crave it to be long because it's like the best time of my day because I get to ground, I get to connect with myself, and then I get to go in as my best self to the day versus my scattered self, right? And this is a practice, it's a lifestyle. It's something I will continue to practice for the rest of my life. But when you do that, that's the game changer because here's the deal. You can have all these high level goals, intentions, manifestations, but at the end of the day, it's your nervous system that's going to run the show. So I can have really good intentions, but if my nervous system is more committed to chaos, lack, and fear, I get more of that. When I learn how to regulate it to calm, peace, safety, love, abundance, magic, I get more of that. So it's actually pretty simple. Wherever I'm creating from is going to determine my results.
Yeah, so beautiful. So in your personal practice, what are a few things that are a part of your routine?
So every day I get up and I journal. And this is a process. I teach this, but I go deep in like, okay, how are you feeling? What do you need? What's coming up? I have a very specific process called the self-love dialogue that I created after my divorce that I teach my clients where you really get to pull out of the chaos, pull out of the story, get to what's underneath the emotion and get more into your power. It's like a cleaning, an inward cleaning process, if you will. I always tell people like you wouldn't go a month without washing your clothes, washing your dishes, washing your body, brushing your teeth, but like how long do you go without cleaning your emotional body? And that's what this process does. I meditate every day, breathe, really slow down the system, get into my body, connect. This is where we can receive a lot of guidance that's already there for us. I do a lot of visualization, I do some movement, like things like that, that again, they're presence bringing practices and regulation practices that are like non negotiables for me at this point.
Amazing. And then with the people that you work with or just people that you know, like what is the transformation that you see from these practices, from anchoring into ourselves internally?
Yeah, it's really beautiful. It usually starts with a lot of chaotic patterns, a lot of anxiety, a lot of hitting the same walls, going around what I call the hamster wheel, going around and around to nowheresville, frustration, pain, to as this work starts to integrate more and it becomes a lifestyle, there I'll get messages like, wow, like I actually feel free in this moment. I actually feel enough. I actually feel happy. I actually feel calm. I'm so inspired because I'm more connected to my high self. I'm more connected to my true self. Here's the deal, like while this work might seem daunting from the ego's perspective, it's the most freeing work you'll ever do. And once you connect to your true, authentic high self, like there's nothing else outwardly that can compare to that feeling. And then again, everything else gets to be a reflection, like the type of partner you attract, the type of clients you attract, the way money flows in, the way you feel about yourself, all those types of things. So, yeah.
Amazing. I love it. This conversation has been so good, and I want to get either a quote or a book recommendation from you.
Yeah, I mean, so many books. The one that's coming through right now is The Universe Has Your Back by Gabby Bernstein. It's a very beautiful book that just I would recommend because it just really helps you understand where you're giving your power away and how you can take it back. And once you have your power, anything's possible.
I love that. Oh my gosh, so good. So if this conversation resonates with you, please get in touch with Randy, connect with her either on social media or her website. Her links are here in the description box. And in case you're like me and you're multitasking and doing the dishes or walking the dog, I want to spell out her website so at least you can hear it when you go back to the link. It's randyhalaway.com, RandiHalaway.com. And what is one powerful way that people can work with you?
Yeah, so I would say my monthly membership is a great start. It's a container for people to come in and really start to build foundation and making themselves a priority, practicing self-care, regulating your nervous system, pulling out of the chaos, coming more into abundance, managing your mind, responding versus reacting, and having that accountability and in community. So it's a beautiful space to start. I also do one-on-one, but anyone can reach out. You can find all of that on my website, on my Instagram at Randy Halaway. I also do free workshops that are always available if you guys want to just like kind of dabble and come hang out. But I would love to connect. And if anyone has any questions, just feel free to reach out.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Randy, for your wisdom, your time, and your energy. I really do appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It was so fun to have this conversation with you.
Absolutely, it's an honor. And if this conversation, again, if it really resonated with you, please share this episode to just one person. I'm sure you could think of someone right now. Again, you might be walking the dog, you might be in the car. Think of one person that you could send this episode to when you park the car, when you're able. That way they could also benefit from this conversation. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. Namaste. Have a great day.